Hi, everyone. This is Connie Germano, Chief Casualty Officer of Dual North America, and I'm here today with John Nouse, Chief Property Officer, and we are very excited to introduce the first Insurance at 78 RPMs podcast with the illustrious Executive Chairman of Dual Group, Kieran Sweeney. John, are you ready for this?
Connie, absolutely, 100%. We had a great time with Kieran. Doing the podcast with you was a great experience. It was really cool to hear what Kieran. It was really cool to hear what Kieran had to say about the current insurance trends for MGAs in the space today, and then more importantly to me, it was great to hear about his song choices. I mean, as you well know, that's kind of the thing that we're really introducing here is not only just the insurance piece, but the song pieces.
Weren't you blown away by his choices and how into those songs he was? How much information he had?
Yeah, it was great. I mean, it's kind of the guest that Kieran is, or kind of the person Kieran is, right? I mean, he was great in the insurance piece. He was great in the music piece. I think you and I both agree with all of his song choices. He gave us 10. I think we discussed 9. So be anxious to hear what the audience has to say or thinks about those song choices. But generally speaking, I'm real excited to see what people have to say about what we're trying to do here at the podcast.
Yeah. I guess we should get to the podcast then.
Yes, that's right. So everyone enjoy it and let us know what you think when you can. All right, welcome everyone to the very first podcast of Insurance at 78 RPMs. My name is John Nouse. I'm the Chief Property Officer of Dual North America, and I'm joined by my partner and not studio host, but my fellow partner in music and insurance, Connie Germano, who is the Chief Casualty Officer at Dual North America. Connie, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. Great to see you, John.
Yeah, and you. I'm really excited to get this up and running, our very first one. We might have to ask for some grace from the audience, but I know we'll get better, but this one will be good as well. I also want to introduce in the background our producer, Mariah Hagan. She'll be spinning the tunes, as it were, and she is a member of the Dual marketing team. So she's in the background, but every bit as important as Connie and me. So today you see on the screen Kieran Sweeney. We're very honored to have him as our very first guest. He is currently Executive Chairman of Dual Group, the underwriting arm of the international broker Howden. I'm sure you all know Kieran has nearly 35 years in the insurance and reinsurance industry, doesn't look a day over 20, and is the founder of Align Financial Holdings, started in 2003. And that was sold 3 years ago, coming this October, to Howden. And previously, Kieran served as CEO of Arrowhead General Insurance Agency. So hello, Kieran, welcome.
Thanks, John. I'm not sure what I've done to deserve this, but I'm delighted to be here. Let's talk some music.
Hey, for sure. And where are you calling in today from, Kieran, so everyone knows?
A rare visit to home in San Diego.
And Connie, where are you located today?
I'm outside of Jackson Hole, Wyoming today.
And how's the weather there?
Oh, it's awesome. It's probably 46 degrees outside.
Glad we're doing this inside, I guess.
Yeah, me too.
And of course, I'm from I'm calling in from Nashville, Tennessee, or just a little bit south, Franklin, Tennessee, which is super apropos for the style of podcast we're about to get into, which is insurance and music, with Nashville being Music City, USA. All right, so why don't we just jump right in, Kieran? Okay, so first question. We're going to talk a little bit about your music choices. Connie and I were both very impressed by them. I'm sure the audience will be too. But let's get started. So on your list first on your list was a David Bowie song, Changes.
Changes. Turn and face the strain. Changes. Don't wanna be a richer man.
So it's a very iconic tune. It's one of Bowie's best. Any particular reason, Kieran, why you might have selected that as part of your top 10?
Yeah, I mean, you'll see a common theme, John, on some of the choices I made on songs. It's kind of the artist-song combo for me. Bowie was uh, my first idol in music. Having been born in 1966, which was, I think, when Bowie had his first chart hit in the UK. He was around effectively my whole life until he passed away a few years ago in New York. But yeah, he was a pretty iconic guy. What I loved about Bowie was the fact that, and I think the song really epitomized this, Bowie never did anything the same twice. Everything he did was unique and different. And so, life's that way, right? You're permanently adapting to change in business, in your personal life, and in his music. I remember when he passed away, they played an interview with Freddie Mercury from Queen, and he described Bowie as using a sound only good enough for him for one B-side track on an album. And Queen built an entire career around that sound, as did, dozens of other bands. And so I just have always found Bowie to be part poet, part songwriter, and iconic in the way that he continued to adapt himself to himself and to society. I mean, he took on different personas, whatever it took to advance the art. So I've always just really enjoyed him. And I thought that song was really apropos for kind of the way I view life and the way Bowie viewed songwriting.
Very, very well said. I think one of the great lyrics in that song is just going to have to be a different man. Time may change me, but I can't trace time. How would you sort of say that relates to your time in the insurance industry as a general kickoff question to this great podcast?
Yeah, I've always used the term, we're all pretty good at sounding strategic in the rearview mirror. The way the industry has adapted, the way my career has changed, the way each of our roles have changed within the businesses that we've been in is never as strategic head on as it is in hindsight. And so I've honestly believed that one of the skill sets it takes to succeed in any industry, but particularly ours, where there are so many external impactors on it, is your ability to be adaptable and change your approach and even your views at times on different things. And so, yeah, for me, being not presenting the same version of yourself to everybody in a business is a very key element of leadership. And then adapting your business over time to the changing environment of the industry and evolving that business in the right direction to make it a more sustainable business within the segment that you've chosen to be in. And I think that's certainly true within the MGA space, in my time at least. And I think there's been lots and lots of subtle changes. The change in legislation over time has really presented a constant challenge to us, the change in regulatory oversight over time, the change in attitudes towards whether or not you could build sustainable underwriting businesses within an underwriting agency model versus a balance sheet model. Those things have been, more subtly changing over time, and time passes really quickly, right? So I wish I could claim 34 or 5 years. It's coming up on 38 years in the industry for me and 27 in the MGA space, and it's changed immensely. And some of it I noticed, and some of it probably was a little bit less noticeable.
Great. Well, and we're going to get into that change over the course of the next hour for sure. Connie?
All right. So one of your top 10 songs is Fields of Gold by Sting, and it's absolutely one of mine. Every time I hear it, it brings me back to the place I first heard it. Can we play just a little snippet of it first? So Sting wrote this about the song. In England, our house is surrounded by barley fields, and in the summer, it's fascinating to watch the wind moving over the shimmering surface like waves of an ocean of gold. So curious, what's your take on this song, and why did you choose it?
I was a big Police fan back in the day. There were a number of real bands, as I would call them, back when I was a kid. coming up, and you could kind of tell they were real because they would, morph into something in the next iteration, whether it was a solo career for Sting or the drummer going off and writing movie soundtracks. It was a really interesting band to follow, and Sting for me kind of epitomized again that poetic songwriter, the ability to write really great anthem type songs, but also sit down with a guitar and write something as beautiful as this. I thought it was amazing. I remember watching a documentary about him, and he writes his music in what feels like a little garden house out on a pond in this beautiful estate that he owns in England. So I've actually seen that barley field in that documentary, and I remember when it came out, I've been playing music my whole life, and I described it as, if you could write one song in your life, this might be the song you wished you would write. And there are a handful of others that would fall in that bracket, but I just think it's a beautiful song. It's really well constructed, and it's just, I saw how it came out of him, I guess, by watching that documentary about him. So it's really stuck with me over the years.
Yeah, sure. Can we take that theme a little bit further? Because I liked that comment about, if you could write one song, this would be the one of your life. When you think about your career, is there a part of it that is the part that really epitomizes what you wanted from life?
Yeah, I like calmness, right? I don't get stressed. I think there are good days and bad days. I think this is one of those songs that makes you feel calm, right? And it's this visualization of fields of grass or barley just blowing in the wind. There's something very relaxing and calming about that. And I think that, if there's one thing I'm proud of that maybe isn't as front and center, it's that not every day has been good in business. I've been extraordinarily fortunate in life, generally, with my family and my friends, so I've no complaints there. But we've all lost people. We've all had bad days, and in business, we've had challenges thrown at us. And your job as a leader is to be calm, right? First and foremost, you may not have the answer immediately, but you're going to get there, I think, a lot more quickly, and you're going to have a much better impact on people if you can maintain calmness, in the face of that adversity. And so I tend to like melodic music, right? And I remember saying, Mozart, I like Mozart. And I said it one time to a fairly arrogant and much more intelligent friend of mine, and he said he wrote cute little melodies. And I said, exactly. I don't need Tchaikovsky. I need Mozart on most days. So you'll probably see there's a little bit of a theme through some of the songs that I picked. They tend to be calmer. They tend to be written by poets. They tend to be melodic in nature, even if the topics sometimes aren't.
Okay, well, good. Thank you. Thanks for that answer. So first of all, I had no idea we had so many songs in common. The next one also is one that, first of all, I think it plays in every single Irish bar in Midtown Manhattan and maybe all over the world, right? Clocks by Coldplay, absolutely. Certainly released in 2003, rose to the Billboard Hot 100, to number 29, I think it was, in the Billboard Hot 100. For anyone who doesn't immediately recognize the title, and frankly, I didn't either. I've heard it so many times, I just had never associated this as the title. Maybe we could play just a few pieces of it, Mariah. John Wiederhorn of MTV News wrote this about it, and I think it's interesting. Chris Martin seems to address the helplessness of being in a dysfunctional relationship he doesn't necessarily want to escape. So I never thought that about the song either, so I found this interesting. But I'm going to use that line for the question. So let's contrast the sentiment with your time in the MGA space, right? It hasn't always had a fantastic reputation. And like Chris Martin in the song, you didn't want to escape it. So what was the GA space like in 2003?
Well, 2003 is a pretty big year for me, right? I went from being CEO of Arrowhead General in 2002 to starting Align General in 2003. And so for some reason that year tends to stick in my mind. It was a time where I had to make a decision whether I was going to go and start my own business or continue along a path I'd been on of running other people's businesses, albeit maybe with a small ownership position. And the discomfort that set in for me was really, if I'm going to do this and I'm going to throw the amount of energy I was throwing into it and the amount of time into it, I should really be doing it for myself at that point. And so even though you're in a good situation and you're in a great business and you're going to love that business for years after you're dissociated with it, that transition for me in 2003 was pretty critical. And I remember at the time thinking, is this a great time to start an MGA? As I mentioned, it wasn't that long after 9/11 that I exited Arrowhead. The industry wasn't sure how it was going to deploy capacity in and around the market, particularly within MGAs at that point in time. But it was a period when I had the only time in my entire career where I had 4 months of not working to sit and look at my fields of gold, which looked like the Pacific Ocean in Del Mar, California, and figure out whether or not, I had the moxie to go do it for myself, bet everything that I had, and stay in a business segment and within a business model that I had come to love. And I obviously made that decision. I had opportunities to go back and run insurance companies and different businesses within the space, but I decided I would take the risk and start a business in the MGA space because I really was a huge believer of the model.
Well, I mean, you think about it, back in those days, as Connie mentioned, the MGA space was fledgling, uneven maybe. Do you feel like Arrowhead was a unicorn? I mean, you obviously built something spectacular there and it exists to this day, but why do you think it was so successful then when there were so many GAs that weren't of the same quality or style?
Again, I credit, Pat Kilkenny was our chairman, who had just immense faith in the energy and the competitiveness of young people. It was a really young business. Arrowhead has spawned a dozen successful businesses from the people that were there when I was there. It was a really unique environment. We weren't afraid. We were encouraged to go make things happen. And we did a few unique things, right? Most MGAs in 1996, when I entered the MGA space, were small one-trick pony MGAs. Arrowhead was actually a big one-trick pony MGA. All it wrote was non-standard auto in 1996. What we brought was an idea and a concept that we needed to build a much more diversified business that managed, through the seasonality of different products. And we brought some covariance to the business risk, which I think was really, really instructive and really helpful. So we built the first $1 billion MGA that did 10 different things, as opposed to the first, $500 million MGA that did one thing. And I think that was really, really hard to do in hindsight, but we did it. And we did it kind of off the energy of lots of really smart, maybe underestimated young people who wanted opportunity, and we gave it to them. And we built an environment and a culture that really good people wanted to be part of, and increasingly over time, leading underwriting talent wanted to be part of. And so I had enough. We had enough examples of when that was done well and done successfully that we had a very clear blueprint of what it would take to succeed. But Arrowhead was a very unique environment for that reason.
Yeah, I mean, a ton of success, in ways that probably traditional insurance companies thought, well, they're not supposed to be doing that. That's not the way it works. Haven't you seen this playbook from the last 100 years? And it turns out the Arrowhead playbook was spectacular.
In the MGA model, we have a multi-carrier model. It's the single real differentiator between what we do and what big insurance companies do, right? We're able to travel the globe with a great idea, with great underwriting talent behind it and a good distribution plan, and visit 1, 2, 3, 5, 8 different insurance companies until we find like-minded people who agree with us that that's an opportunity, and we partner up and we go and execute. And then layering on our ability to build limit and build capacity using smart process and technology by partnering with multiple companies to provide single solutions to brokers is the other piece of that, right? Those are the differentiating factors, and we figured it out at Arrowhead. We perfected it, I think, in Align. We've built that forward now into Dual, and that's why you're seeing more and more and more multi-billion-dollar MGAs in the industry today.
Indeed. So, all right, we'll switch gears to another song which has an all-time iconic riff. Mariah, can you start it, please?
Very melodic.
So that is not a Gen X tune, Kieran, but nevertheless, Seven Nations Army, written by Jack White of the White Stripes. Any particular reason you chose that?
Well, so that was another 2003 song, right? So, I find
Big
I
year
found
for
it
you.
very, huh?
Big year for you.
Big year for me, right? And I'm a huge, Jack White's a very interesting character, right? Anybody who's ever researched him will find out that, he's not just a great songwriter, but he's just a very interesting dude, all the way around. I love the energy of that song. And, I talked about writing anthems and writing, melodic. I tried to mix up my picks here a little bit. This one for me is more like the fight song. If I was in the UFC, that's the song that would be playing as I walk to the arena, probably to get my ass kicked, right? But I just love the song. It was something I played a ton when we were starting the business, when there was just me and Andy Swindle sitting in an office licking envelopes, and it was a really interesting experience to go from having 700 or 800 employees to having one guy that you're betting everything with. To go build a new business. And so we played a lot of music, right? We sat in that office because we were doing everything. Andy had a young baby at home, so he would leave early, and I did most of the envelope licking, but I would play this song a lot in the evenings, and it's just carried forward with me. And I've, as I said, done a little homework on Jack and what he's capable of. My favorite thing that most people don't know about the title of the song, Seven Nation Army, is that it comes from Jack White when he was younger, hearing someone say the Salvation Army and getting it wrong. So he used to call the Salvation Army the Seven Nation Army, which I always thought was quite entertaining.
Yeah, it's a great fact. It's interesting. We talked about, Connie and I talked about this briefly, about how important music is in people's lives, and the fact that when you hear this song, you were always going to think about licking envelopes in 2003 with Andy. It really is.
With gusto, John, with gusto, because that's an anthem song there.
Even in 2003, there were alternatives to that called the sponge. Just
We couldn't afford a sponge back then, Connie. As a matter of fact, when we got a mechanical folder inserter for our bills, it was the greatest day of my life to this day.
So I'll say one piece about this tune. Tom McGinnis, he reviewed the song, and he described the lyrics as presenting an obstinate attitude, citing the opening lines, "I'm going to fight them off. A seven-nation army couldn't hold me back. They're going to rip it off, taking their time right behind my back," etc. I think that ties a little bit in with your GA career, where, sort of initially it wasn't always the flavor of the month, but over time you kind of stuck with it. And clearly the success you've enjoyed from Arrowhead to Align to now Dual, it's got to be pretty satisfying.
Well, yeah. The underlying theme of the song is ignoring gossip, right? Ignoring what people are saying about you. He's a small town guy, and as he got more successful, he found people had a lot to say about him, people who didn't know him intimately or particularly well. And, when you're starting businesses or you're young and you're running businesses, lots of people have lots of views, right? So you've got to have really resolute self-belief, and you've got to be really confident in the bets you're making, the people you're choosing to partner up with, and the plan, right? And your ability to execute it. And you have to block out the noise, right? There's lots of it. There are lots of people saying you're not going to succeed. There are lots of people saying this isn't going to work. There were lots of people saying it was a horrible time to build an MGA. And the way I did it was a little bit unique in that we built out all the systems and the process and the discipline of a really great enterprise before we wrote our first policy. So the first almost 2 years of work that we did was infrastructure build out. And part of that was reflective of my own history of fixing infrastructures. I spent 10 years taking battleships and trying to turn them around and unplugging and rewiring really shitty systems and really horrible process in lots and lots of businesses. And I didn't want to do it again, right? So maybe it was an obstinate element of me that I was going to go my way. I called it the field of dreams. I'm going to build it and they'll come, right? And we built, I think, a really world-class infrastructure that is still in place today.
Wow. Excellent. All right. Next song. I bet you're curious which one it is. And you've chosen some great ones, so I can't argue with any of them. There's only one really that I didn't know. So let's go to In the Air Tonight by Phil Collins.
The hurt doesn't show, but the pain still grows. Some stranger to you and me. I can feel it coming in the air tonight. Oh Lord.
This was Phil's debut album, and I remember it well, being a Genesis fan, as I was saying. It was such a departure from what Genesis had done. So it's best known for one of the greatest drum breaks of all time. You can hear that and immediately, at least I can, be transported back to the time that it was released. So curious why you chose it.
Big Genesis fan, right? When Peter Gabriel left, I remember being as devastated as everybody else. I'm like, is this the end of a great band? Mike Rutherford, Tony Banks, Phil Collins. I love the Phil Collins story. Not everybody knows this, but if you're a Genesis fan, you probably do. When Gabriel left, the band they're quite arrogant intellectuals, right? Let's just put it that way. They are very smart guys, and they let that get in their way, right? And they ran a process, and there's an instruction in here somewhere. They ran a process, and they kept running it and running it and running. And that process was to find a new frontman. And no one was good enough. And they kept interviewing and having guys come in. And after every single audition for a new frontman, Phil Collins was sitting behind the drums with his hand up going, I can do this, right? You should give me a shot. I can do this. I can be the lead singer of Genesis. And the other two guys were laughing at him and going, no, right? And I hate to say it, but it reminded me in my 20s where I'm like, give me the shot, right? I can run, I can do this. I can manage it. Shut up, Phil, get the next guy in. This went on for 6 or 8 months. And eventually they were like, God, I don't know. We can't find anyone. And Phil goes, guys, will you just give me a shot? They did 2 songs, and Rutherford and Tony Banks looked at each other and went, holy shit. We've had the guy sitting here the whole time. And so the instruction is give the guy a chance, right? So always give people a chance. And so I've always respected people who put their hand up, right? Phil put his hand up, said, let me go. Now, Phil is one of the greatest drummers of all time. He's one of the very, very rare few of metronomic drummers who cannot drum out of time, right? Most big albums, most big rock albums have drummers that get replaced for the album with a machine because they speed up and they slow down during the song and it sounds like dog crap on the album itself. Genesis, not only did Phil play every drum beat of every song on every recorded album, he never varied his tempo. He doesn't know how to. He's metronomic, which, as I said, is extremely rare. But he also likes to play 7/8 beat offbeat drumming, which is highly complicated, and there are very few drummers who can do it. And there are no drum machines that can do it. So he virtually guaranteed that he was never going to get replaced when they went to do a recording. And if you've ever wondered why you never hear Genesis music being covered by a band in a bar, it's because they can't play the drum beat. So you can't actually play Genesis as a cover band, which I think is also hugely arrogant and not necessary. I would like to hear more Genesis in a bar.
I have never thought of that.
No.
That's amazing.
But it gives you an insight into this guy. And then, like I said, it was like Genesis then was winding up. Mike and the Mechanics was coming along. They were all doing their own thing, right? And Phil's like, I can do this myself, right? And that song of all songs, first album, first release single, blew everybody's minds away. And I remember it like it was yesterday. There's a DJ now called Sickick. If you haven't had a chance to track it down, go track down the mix that this Sickick DJ did with Michael Jackson and In the Air Tonight by Phil Collins.
In an interview in 2016, he said this: I wrote the lyrics spontaneously. I'm not quite sure what the song is about. I found that interesting. But there's a lot of anger, a lot of despair, and a lot of frustration. All right. So I'm not going to ask you about divorce, anger, frustration. I am going to ask you that given this era of change that is in some way shared by competitors of MGAs today, certainly MGAs are playing a very big role in carrier capital strategies, right? Can you talk a little bit about the MGA model and the advantages capacity partners currently enjoy when they use that as part of their deployment strategy?
Yeah, so carriers have a lot of capital. Not all of it is fully leveraged. It's deployed, not all fully leveraged. Maybe one of the big changes over the last 20 years is that almost every large strategic carrier or global carrier that we work with now has a certain deployment of that capital into the MGA space. And I think the reasons for that are that the business risk of getting into specialty lines, which is where I think most of the successful MGAs exist, and certainly we do. We exist in the deltas between preferred product and product that's extraordinarily difficult to write. We provide an ability to these carrier partners to deploy capital around underwriters that have a rarity factor attached to them. They do things that there are not lots and lots and lots of people in the industry doing. So they have real expertise, and they've developed a process in their experience, and we've developed systems and processes to do a more expert and exacting underwriting role within those specialty spaces. So, if you're going to write loss-free business, you don't have to spend an awful lot of time understanding loss history. But if you're going to write distressed or specialty business like we do, you had better be very, very good at assimilating loss experience and loss data and knowing the difference between random volatility and systemic recurring risk, right, or exposure. And so when companies see the outsized margins that are available in those product areas, the offsetting factor is finding the talent, building the infrastructure, building the process to write what is not for these very, very large carriers going to be very, very large portfolios of business. They're going to be more modest scale specialty portfolios with high margin. And we, I think, have done a really nice job in the MGA space of saying, putting our hand up like Phil Collins and saying, we can do that for you, right? Mm-hmm. We can do that for you at a better fixed expense and with better outcome than we think you can do it for yourself. And I've had the same conversation with numerous of our carrier partners where I say, if you honestly believe you can do it better yourself, do it yourself, right? If you don't, then talk to us, because I think we are really good at it.
Yep. Okay, next song. Now, I think most of our listeners or watchers will know that you're Irish, although you don't think you can really tell by your accent. That's a little suspect. It's been washed away over many, many years in England and California and New York. Nevertheless, you're a man of the people, Kieran. So the next song is this one. Mariah, can you play the piece that we had queued up for it?
Someone you can lend a hand in return for grace. It's a beautiful day. Sky falls, you feel like it's a beautiful day. So let it get away.
So you did choose one song from your countrymen, Beautiful Day by U2. Why do you think you picked that tune? Because there are tons you can pick from U2. I mean, I can think of a dozen off the top of my head that are outstanding songs, this being one of them, of course, but just curious why you selected this one of all their discography albums.
Yeah, I could have picked any song by U2, right? I played in the band in the 1980s in Ireland. U2 were a band in the 1980s in Ireland. They went from being a really good band in Dublin. When I first sort of got to hear them live, I had heard rumors about them. We've actually played in a couple of different music festivals, in the same music festivals together, but I didn't know who they were back in those days. And then, they released U2 Boy, and then October, and then went galactic. I think War was their third album.
Yep.
And it just, it catapulted this band that a few of us thought we were really cool, that we knew about, and we thought they were really great, into being the world's biggest band. It was It was pretty amazing to be around that in those days, and to be able to look at a concert poster sometimes and see we were up here billed as a nighttime band, and you two were down here in the small band section, which was really remarkable. Probably never happen again. And so I've always admired those guys. They're very thoughtful guys. They went to King's House, which was a good school in Dublin. You know, they did not grow up on the wrong side of the tracks. They were smart and upper middle class kids, which is a rare place for great musicians to come from. You know, this is not sort of the Northern England bands that we were all big fans of in those days. So I just, from the moment I got around these guys, they felt smarter, more organized. And this is going to be funny because it's such a core theme to our business, right? It just felt more sustainable, what they were doing. There were 4 members of the band. Brian McGuinness was the manager. They used to play for £100 a man, right, in a gig. This is back in the early 80s, like 1980, 81. And when they go to collect their fee, they expected £500 because Brian McGuinness, their manager, was the 5th member of the band. And to this day, Brian McGuinness is the manager of the band, and everybody in the band gets treated equally and gets 1/5 of everything. Wow. And that was just an instructive model for me, because what it said to me was, in order for things to be sustainable, you've got to treat everybody equally. So I'm not going to skip over the fact that you two have been an unbelievable band to watch. I've probably seen them live 20 times. I saw them at the Sphere a few months ago in Vegas, and it was as remarkable as all the other gigs.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, they were real mates. Real mates.
Yeah. Mates.
Bono wrote, he said about the song, "It's a man who's lost everything but finds joy in what he still has." And Blender Magazine interpreted the song and the line, "It's a beautiful day," as a vision of abandoning material things and finding grace in the world itself. And even funny enough, to your point about how great they are, in an episode of Sundance Channel's Iconoclast, REM's lead singer, Michael Stipe, said, "I love that song. I wish I'd written it. And they know I wish I'd written it. It makes me dance. It makes me angry that I didn't write it." Now, all of that aside, which I think is a hell of an endorsement of a song by someone like Michael Stipe and REM. But all that aside, it kind of is a beautiful world in the MGA, a beautiful day in the MGA world, I should say. And I think all 3 of us would probably agree that's not changing anytime soon. And clearly the way you've spoken about the space, I think it's a very, very robust future. But what is it about MGAs and their DNA that make them so special, would you say?
Yeah, look, I think it is. It's a place where people who have a little bit more of a entrepreneurial spirit, people who want to build something, we're a great platform for talent, right? And I think we've worked extraordinarily hard to prove that to people over time. It was extraordinarily difficult to convince people it was a good career move. I had trouble convincing myself it was a good career move to go to the MGA space back in the 90s. It's a lot easier today. As a matter of fact, the conversations these days are almost self-qualifying. The very best underwriters who know they're delivering tremendous value and building really quality portfolios are either thinking about starting an MGA, have thought about starting an MGA, or having conversations with other people who have MGA platforms. So the message has clearly been, delivered. If you want to build something, you have to be I argue that standard is extraordinarily high. We are judged by how we manage other people's capital with high integrity, and we take that responsibility extremely seriously. But if we're able to demonstrate that we do that well, and you're the type of individual who is genuinely good at what you do, and a high integrity individual who is not going to write a risk for the sake of writing a risk, they're going to write a risk because it's right priced and the exposures are the right ones, then this is a wonderful platform for you. I also feel like we've got, as part of our DNA, like I said, an ability to move more quickly. We've by definition built better process and technology, and we've done that because our operating margins have to exist inside the average expense ratio of the industry, or our model's not sustainable. We can't be more expensive, right? We have to be able to make our profits at a level where we're not blowing up people's expense ratios on their yellow books. And so, by definition, I think we've built technologies that are more malleable. They're better at launching new product. We're better at expanding our business. It's part of our platform play, and our processes are aimed at efficiency from the get-go, because it's a necessity in our world, and that's the mother of all invention, right? Is necessity. So I think that, coupled with product innovation, how quickly we note dislocations in the marketplace, we see opportunities where we see people running for the exits. I'm not saying we're the people who are going to run into a raging fire, but a little bit of smoke, no problem. We're going to see those markets as opportunities. We've conditioned ourselves to do that, and we've conditioned ourselves to move quickly to provide solutions to our distribution partners. And that, I think, is probably the other element of this, right? Our distribution partners now rely on us as much as they do, traditional insurance companies. We provide solutions that are in segments and within specialty areas and product, et cetera, that, I just don't think the insurance companies want to be in. And if they do, I think they talk to us now. So I think we really have used that entrepreneurialism, that ability to build and respond, build technologies, build process, and respond to product opportunity quickly, but to do it in a highly credible way and with great underwriting. I think that those are the DNA elements that are going to carry us through. Beyond that, I think the capital model has demonstrated itself to be, a superior one. The multiples that we're attracting now in this space are 4 times what they were when we were building our first MGA back in the mid-90s.
Well, the part that you talked about with bringing over insurance carrier people, being a 30-plus year veteran of the stock insurance company side, I can't tell you how many times people that I've worked with in the past say to me, "So what's it like working for an MGA? It's almost like it's cool now."
well, let's not get carried away, right? We're still in insurance here,
Indeed.
I don't know how many dates you get in your 20s if you go into a bar and tell people you're in insurance, but I didn't get a lot. But yeah, it has gotten cooler.
For sure. All right, next song, which is the newest on your list, Castle on the Hill by Ed Sheeran. A tremendous voice, a tremendous musician, tremendous entertainer. Fantastic. That was released in 2017, as I'm reading, the same day as another Sheeran song not on your list, Shape of You. Castle on the Hill debuted at 6 in the U.S. Shape of You debuted at number 1. The very first time, he's the very first artist ever to have 2 songs simultaneously debut in the top 10. So pretty impressive. Mariah, can we play a little bit of the tune for everyone who might not know it?
When I was 6 years old, I broke my leg. And I was running from my brother and his friends.
Now, did you pick this song, Kieran, because that relates to your life as a young boy, that particular line?
Well, I don't have any brothers and I didn't break a leg, right? But I picked it again, I'm a big Sheeran fan, right? And he is an Englishman with Irish roots. He vacationed in Ireland a lot, and as a kid, that was the peak. That was when I was in London when I was a little kid. That was the absolute, peak of the year for me, was getting 2, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, running around in the fields in Ireland. This song, I think songs are supposed to do a few things. Mostly they are supposed to be emotive, right? And so this one and one other that we haven't talked about on the list do that for me. Songs are supposed to be meaningful. This makes me think about driving down country roads in the west of Ireland and the excitement of running around in the fields as a kid. And it just brings back tons and tons of memories about the simple life that I had as a kid, right? We didn't grow up with much, but grew up with a great family and lots of cousins and farmland to run around in during the summer holidays, And so this song just sort of sticks out. I got to see him live a few months ago here in San Diego, where he did a free concert for CureBound, which is a cancer research charity here. And he was nothing short of absolutely remarkable. And the fact that he was the first person, I believe, to take a stool and a guitar and stand on the stage at Wembley Stadium in England and keep 100,000 people enthralled for a 2+ hour concert, people would have said you couldn't do it, right? You can't do the big gig on a stool with a guitar. Now, he did, right? So there's something fantastic about this guy. I've got some stories that are not as appropriate for the air about Ed Sheeran and a couple of his mates. Apparently, he's a pretty good beer drinker as well, and is a very good guy. So love the guy, love all his music. This particular song for me just brings back great memories.
And that's really a purpose of music, is to do just that. So if we tie the current MGA space to the song title, right, Castle on a Hill, how do we maintain our position where we are currently as MGAs? What is required by them to maintain their standing? What are the risks facing them potentially that could see them knocked off that hill?
The biggest challenges in my mind for the MGA space is to maintain the quality of what we do. As our market and segment gets bigger, becomes a bigger part of the landscape, particularly obviously in the specialty P&C space, we risk lower quality players coming in and seeing it as a opportunity to build and flip, do low quality underwriting, build revenue streams and EBITDA. Certainly, we're very, very cognizant of the pressures PE owners put on businesses to grow. We're underwriting businesses. We don't talk about growth, right? Growth is a byproduct of great underwriting. If we do our job extremely well and we focus on combined ratios and we focus on being really sophisticated, exposure management folks and claims handlers and pricing experts, we will grow. That is how we've grown our businesses over the last 27 years that I've been in the MGA space. So I'm hoping that we're in an age now, certainly where the barriers to entry are higher, certainly where the ability to monitor and use data to get it right. I hope that will continue. And I hope that, the folks that are in our space will do us all proud, because we act as a collective, right? The entire MGA space has gotten tremendously sophisticated. There are some world-class businesses in this space, and long may that continue. I don't want bad apples, and I don't want people with low integrity coming into it, and I certainly don't want to see them rewarded for coming into it. Beyond that, it's the challenges that face the industry face us too.
Fair point.
All right. Well, next one. Can you believe it? We have more. It seems you're a bit of a romantic. You've chosen a love song. I actually didn't realize this was a love song. This Must Be the Place by Talking Heads, written by David Byrne and released in 1983.
Very catchy.
Another very melodic tune. So why did you choose it? And did you know it was a love song? I didn't.
No, I'm not sure I did, and this is again where, my picks are the association of the band and the song, right? And then kind of where it fits in my evolution as a human being. My best friend in high school and I were massive Talking Heads fans back then. David Byrne, if you spend a bit of time researching him, is a pretty remarkable guy. Mm-hmm. Huge supporter of the girl band back in the day, before it was cool to be supportive of the girl band, right? It was Bananarama and Tom Tom Club and a couple of others. But, he was just one of those guys that saw everything for the way it was, which is another one of his songs. The music was unique, right? And so this song was my second last year of high school, going into college, and we were just pathological Talking Heads listeners in those days. Not sure I did realize it was a love song.
Well, we have it straight from David Byrne that what he said about the song. It's a love song, made up almost completely of non sequiturs. That I get, sounds just like him. Phrases that may have a strong emotional resonance. Anyway, at the end of the comment, he says, "I think I succeeded. I was pretty happy with that." So I'm going to pick up on the different theme, right? He is very unique in his space. I remember clearly when I first heard them and thought, what is this? Became a fan, yes. So thinking about how MGAs have been so different in our insurance space, how do we remain that uniqueness as we become maybe a little mainstream?
Boy, that's like reminds me of the joke about how do you drown a hipster, throw him in the mainstream. I don't know if we're the hipsters threatening the mainstream, and I would like to kind of think maybe we're not, but certainly here to stay and credible and justifiably so, right? I used to do a lot of defending of our model over the years, and I'm aging nicely into my, I don't feel like I have to defend the model anymore. Now I really want to see the model maintain its credibility. So I think the answer is, it's about maintaining some entrepreneurialism. It's about maintaining that fast reaction time that we've had to have in our space. We didn't have the luxury of taking time forever. We were the people rushing in versus the people rushing out. Continuing to be an environment and create cultures that people want to be part of. You can be a great underwriter and still be part of an entrepreneurial culture, and you can participate in wealth creation. I don't think those things, are going to stay. I always, worry about capacity. That is always, what I worry about. I want to make sure that we're doing all the things to continue to dignify getting capacity, because you can't go from $3.5 billion to $7 billion without another $3.5 billion worth of capacity. And that's no small lift. And there are now a number of us out there that are running multi-billion-dollar MGAs, right? And so growth on a percentage basis requires a lot of capacity. So I would like to think that the integrity and the sophistication that has come into our segment will continue to be evolved and developed, that we will be leaders in the use of data, leaders in the clever utilization of capital, and leaders in generating higher margins. I mean, the future of our business, in my opinion, is really driven by our ability to generate lower combined ratios for our capital partners, whether they're traditional or alternative. And I think that requires us to continue doing what we're already quite good at, but maintaining, most importantly, the integrity of that goal.
Well, listen, we appreciate your time, Kieran. We do want to mention one last song. You alluded to it earlier, and to the point where it makes you think of things. I'm lucky enough to have known you for quite a while, and this is why I wanted to save this song for last. It's a song called Drive by Alan Jackson. We're going to spend a little bit of time listening to the lyric because I think it's important, and I want to get your take on it, and I think you have some things to say about it. So, Mariah, it's a minute. We're going to listen to it for a minute, but I think it's worth the minute. It's worth every second of the minute to listen to it. Take it away, Mariah. The only country tune in your 10, too, which is great.
It was painted red, the stripe was white, it was 18 feet from the bow to the stern line. Second hand from a dealer in Atlanta, I rode up with Daddy when he went there to get her. Put on a shine, put on a motor, built out of love, made for the water. Ran her for years till her transom got rotten. A piece of my childhood that'll never be forgotten. It was just an old plywood boat, the 75 Johnson with electric choke. A young boy, 2 hands on the wheel. I can't replace the way it made me feel. And I would turn her sharp and I'd make it whine. He'd say, you can't beat the way an old wood boat rides. Just a little lake across the Alabama line, but I was king of the ocean when Daddy let me drive.
Just incredible lyrics. And I know why you chose it, but I'd like everyone to hear it from you.
Yeah, it makes me think of my dad, and it makes me think of the support mechanism that we all had. I can't help but tear up when I hear that song, which is what country music, look at me now, which is what country music is supposed to do, right? And we talked about it eliciting emotions. That song for me is it, right? I'm a huge country fan. Most people don't know that the Irish are the number one per capita country music fans in the world. We kept Garth Brooks, I think, for 13 concerts straight in Dublin with 75,000 people, which is a huge percentage of the Irish population actually went to see him. It's the derivation of a lot of, Irish traditional music, which I grew up playing thanks to my dad, because his uncle was a really quality musician back in the 1940s in New York. But, my dad was just a great believer in me. And I wouldn't be where I am without a great family behind me. None of us would. And it was always the little things with him. He was not one of these guys with lots of great advice and lots of world wisdom. He was just always there, right? I lost him in 2016. I miss him every day. But I listened to this song, and this is what songwriting is all about. It doesn't surprise me that Alan Jackson was the first country star to sell his catalog for $100 million, right? Because the guy can't help himself but write amazing music. And for me, when people say they don't like country, it's because they're not listening to the right country, right? I like every genre of music, but only the good shit, right? Alan Jackson is a great songwriter, right? And he wrote a song that I could listen to 50 times in a row, and it has the same heart-tugging effect on me every time I listen to it. And I recently taught my daughter to drive, and there's a little segment at the end of that song where he talks about teaching his daughter to drive, because it's generational, and it's this lovely generational aspect of things, which, we talk internally at Dual as an older leadership team these days that, the English didn't get a lot right by Irish standards, but they did instruct us on some very important things. And one of them was they were great believers in planting trees they would never sit under. They would never enjoy the shade of a big oak, but they would plant it in their lifetime for 2 generations ahead of them to enjoy. And I think that's our responsibility in building great businesses, right? And it's the responsibility I owed, my dad. When he was around, I wanted to make him proud, and I wanted to do something that was generational. I want my girls to feel about me the way I feel about him, and I want future generations and younger people in our business to feel great about what we built and the culture we hand off to them and the opportunities we create for them, so that they'll do the same thing. Businesses are very dynamic. They have a life form of their own. David Howden has really epitomized for me what it means to be a great leader. As goes the leadership, so goes the business. And I think we're building something really, really special and multi-generational. And that song for me is all about the beauty of simple things, doing simple things right, and doing them repetitively, and then handing that off and doing it again for the next generation. So I used to drive my daughter nuts when we were doing driving lessons, because I kept playing that song over and over again. She'll probably, in years to come, love it. Right now, she might need a little bit of a break from it. But I think that really sums up what a great song is supposed to be.
Yeah, he's a genius. I mean, he wrote that song, Where Were You When the World Stopped Turning, about 9/11, which I can't listen to without getting sad, right, because of people I lost and we've all lost in 9/11. It's really a stunning songwriter and musician. Thanks for sharing that, Kieran. Really appreciate it.
Is it official? Did we all tear up during that song?
I clearly did.
Yeah, I mean,
I did, but I was careful. I let the tears dry. And it was the first time I'd really heard it. So
it's lovely that it still has that impact on you, right? And it's funny, right? If you think back, I always say I can remember, the kid I disliked the most in school. I can remember my favorite teacher, and I can remember everyone in my career that had a really positive impact on me. And it wasn't always someone I was working for. It was very often someone that either worked for me or was just around me, but they just had a way of making stuff real and worthwhile every day. And I think that, that's a responsibility of leadership. And I think it's either embedded in great culture within your organizations or it's not. And I'd like to think we did an okay job on that part.
Hear, hear.
Well, good. Well, thank you. Thanks for joining us. I've loved it. I hope you have too. Thanks for sharing all of the songs and your insight with the two of us, as well as our audience today. That's the end of our podcast. So for John Naus, I'm Connie Germano. Thanks for listening to the first ever Insurance at 78 RPMs podcast. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.